All right. Finally getting on here. God dang, God dang, God dang, dang. It has been a heck of a day. I have been sending a lot of people some messages. I've been really fired up. The amount of notes I took, I don't even know how many words I wrote today about just some new kind of breakthroughs and ways for things to be viewed and looked at. I did some polls over the last few days in a couple filmmaker, videographer groups, and to basically say, have you had a great year, your best year ever kind of question versus is this a down year or one of your worst years yet or way down from usual? And I have 111 are down and 111, or excuse me, and 98 are great. So darn near 50-50. And this is why we've got to watch who we interact with and, who we're listening to. Because imagine if all the people get together who aren't doing well. Pretty quick. I mean, you got over 100 people who aren't doing as well as they have in years past. If all those people conjugate together and start talking, they're going to go around and tell people industry's not good. Things are not going well, right? If the people who are doing really well hanging together, they're going to be like, "Dang, man, business is great. I don't know what other people are talking about. I'm crushing it," right? And so we've really got to look at times below the surface. The problem is what nuances we don't see at times in little micro polls like this. And I plan to dig a little deeper actually, is that somebody who did 50 grand last year and does 100 grand this year, and somebody else who did 400 grand last year and does 300 grand this year, like the person went from 50 to 100 grand is going to be like, this is a freaking incredible year. This is awesome. I'm killing it. And the other person's going to say they had a bad year and they made $200,000 more than the other person. Yet one person voted bad year and made $200,000 more than the person who had a great year, but only did 100 grand. So we don't see these things at times that are going on. I mean, I remember that I had one of my best years yet back in 2008 when the economy, was crashing down because of real estate. And I'm friends with people now who, had 8 employees and a lot of overhead, and they got decimated during the same time that I had my best year ever. But my best year ever, I only really had up to go. And so there's different people at different stages. And on the internet, we really don't know what's happening. We don't really know if somebody, I try to share a lot. And I try to be as transparent as I humanly possibly can overall relative to other people in my life or relationships of people that just like, I can't mention their names. I do try to have some privacy here. And even though I share some things that could be deemed negative by some people, they don't even hear it as negative because I share it through a positive lens. But I had so much that I wrote down today that I want to kind of walk through some different things that I want to more organize. But right now, I just want to start to break some of this down as to some of the things that I've been seeing. Because if you look at my hat, these 3 symbols for me are kind of a holistic approach to supporting people. Because I don't believe, even though I heavily focus on the mental health side of things, the mental game, the mindset side of things, I don't believe that if somebody's succeeding or not succeeding, it's 100% dedicated to only their mind. And that's it. And there's zero other, like, if your mindset's just better, you'd make more money. It's like, yes and no. Like, there are situations where it's a combination of skills and mind skill sets and mindsets that need to be combined together. Like, both things aren't necessarily really strong. And then there's a combination or a non-combination where sometimes it's just a mental game. Like, you got a lot of things that are working right for you, but your mental game's off, and that's what's preventing you from having more success. And then sometimes it's a skill. It's something that's missing in your skill set, in your knowledge base. And I finally have a new lens to look at my same-day edit story that I always bring up. I feel like I've squeezed all the juice out of that sucker, and I still find new lessons. And the one I found today combines, whether or not it's a skill set issue or a mindset issue or a combination of both. And to be able to kind of put a filter on my business, my clients' businesses, people that I know, past success stories, and see, well, what was it that helped them succeed? Because I can see the combination of, one or all of these working in unison. And so for me, when you look at my same-day edit story, growing my video production company, I did all sorts of things for all sorts of different types of people. In the beginning of my career, I was really happy to do anything for everybody. It was fun. I had my buddies. It's not that it got less fun, but there was things I was definitely a lot better at and loved to do more than others. And so as I progressed on, I started still taking on projects that I blatantly wasn't qualified to do and didn't like doing, all sorts of negative things. I would upset clients. They would be not happy with me. I would procrastinate. I would put it off. And in my wedding space, I happened to find out that that's like where most of my money was coming from. But I was doing all these different offers. And what I want to go through here with you is whether you're like, you actually have a lead problem, right? You have a sales kind of conversation conversion problem, or you have a product problem. Because sometimes we're changing the product and there ain't nothing wrong with the product. It's just how we talk or we sell the product, or we don't even have enough leads that we're even talking to. So changing kind of the sales or the product is useless until you get more people that you can actually have a conversation with to know, okay, like for me, this is what was happening. I couldn't sell the same day edit. So I would do the same day edit for free, and people loved the same day edit. So the disconnect for me for a long time was, when I do it, I love it. When people receive it, they love it. But for some reason, I can't sell it. So I was talking to the right people. I had tons of couples that would contact me. They would book me to film their weddings, but I would sell all these videos and then try to sell the same day edit, and I couldn't sell it. I just couldn't figure out. But you got to think, if right now you were getting married and I go through this whole thing and I say, and I have this video, it's called the same day edit. We shoot that day, we edit, and we show the video that night. And you say to me, well, wouldn't the video be better if you had more time? And I go, maybe. I mean, it's a really good video. People really like it. I love doing it. But, I could see where I could see where you could think that. I know that having more time can make something better. And if I'm giving you an answer that's some version of like, maybe it would be better, but I'm saying, give me money to do this thing. Like, this is not the words that would come out of my mouth. But when I think back logically about it now, if you tell me, if you ask me a question, wouldn't it be better if you had more time? And I say, maybe, but give me $750 to do this thing, that maybe I'll make a great one, or maybe I could have made something better. Would you opt for that thing? Or would you be like, I don't think we need to pay extra for that. We got plenty of other videos, because that doesn't quite make sense. Now, there were people who experienced it, who they were sold, they loved it. And, they were easy sells. But there were a lot of people who didn't experience it. Even if they were referred, they were easier than a completely cold person, but they were not as easy as if they experienced it. And I had a lot of people who didn't experience it, or who were referred, that were like questioning it. So most of the ones I did were free. So what was the difference between me being able to sell just that for $3,500 when I couldn't sell it for $750 prior to that? Like, I basically went from like 8 to 10 videos plus that for $750, and most people wouldn't take it, to just $3,500 for just that video. I didn't get new eyeballs. I didn't get new leads. I didn't get different leads. I didn't get more leads. I didn't get a different product. I didn't get a different editor, shooters, lenses, cameras, none of that. Everything was the same except for one thing right inside of here. My confidence, my conviction, my clarity, the way I talked about it, the way I showed up on these calls, that changed, and that changed everything. So in that situation, you could say maybe the skill set of the way I talked about it, but it was really a mental game, because I wasn't very confident in it. I knew I loved it, but I didn't have the conviction to do what I'm about to say here, which is, well, wouldn't the video, I keep saying video, wouldn't the video be better if you had more than 2 hours? Rather than being like, maybe, and kind of have this really weak response, I would say, I can't speak for other people. I don't know if they need 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years to make a great video. But when I do the same day edit, is the best video I make. And I just had this confidence. I can go on and on, but I just had this confidence that that was the best video I make. And I actually had a reason why, if I didn't do that, I would make them a lesser quality video. Now, what do you think somebody's going to do if they like me and they like my work and they really want to hire me? They're going to go, well, I don't want you to do that. Like, I'd rather you do this other thing that you're blatantly telling me you won't do as good of a job on. Versus the other scenario, it sounded like we're rolling the dice as to whether or not they're going to get a great thing or not. Like, yeah, it looks great, but if you would have had more time, like, why don't I just pay you to do the thing you're going to have more time to do than to do that thing, right? And so I have a client where, if you listen to this, I love you, brother. I won't obviously give away any details that they'll know any more than what I'm going to say, but we've been working together for a while. And the thing that's kept coming up, and this person's done really well in the grand scheme of things. They've worked with celebrity clients. They've traveled the world. They've made six figures, but they were still struggling with their confidence. And even though they've been distracted and struggling with confidence, they still did six figures because their product freaking great. And I find that a trend that I have with the people that I tend to work with is that their work is great. More times than not, the people that I work with have really high quality products. And at times they keep spending more and more time improving the product when the fact that they're not making money has nothing to do with the product. It's not like they're only going to get, there's a law of diminishing returns for a lot of these people in continuing to improve the product. The biggest problem is they're not even talking to anybody. I'm not talking to enough people, or they're not talking to the right people, right? And then when they're talking to people, if they're talking to the right people and they're talking to enough people, they don't have the confidence. So this particular person is getting higher and higher rates, but the higher and higher they go, the more and more they were struggling at times to sell it. Even though I believe that the people they were likely attracting could afford it. The shift I had yesterday, because we've always had a little bit of a confidence thing we've been working through, and it's been getting better and better, and self-esteem's been increasing, all these kind of things. But they had finally wanted to outsource their editing. And they got an editor, and they're describing, and this is what always happens when people are talking about their business to me and talking about their work and talking about things, is they set up an expectation where when I go to look at something, I'm expecting to see crap. Like, I'm expecting to see something that is not that good. Now, am I the best, full Monte judge of what is good and what is bad in the video production space? Not necessarily, but I've definitely done very well in the video production space. And I guess I have taste that's good enough to judge people's work on, because the only people I see who my judge of work, like, this is bad, that do well, have incredible mindsets, and they're incredibly good at business. But the people who are incredible, and they will tend at times to make more money than a person who has incredible work, but not a great mindset. If we can marry the two together, and your skills and your mind and your product and your service are all great or really good, you'll do the best. You'll make the most amount of money. You'll do really well. You're clear on your product, clear on your service. You believe in your product. You believe in your service. You got a great mindset. You got a great attitude. All these things are aligned. You'll do pretty well. It's hard not to do well when all that's aligned. But it's hard to do well when you view your work and you view what you're doing through a very negative, pessimistic, I don't really believe in my service. Everybody else is better than me. I'm not that good. I could never charge that. I'm screwing people over. I realized that when I hired my buddy Ryan way back in 2010, from 2004 through 2010, I don't think I had 5 or 10, 15 projects max in that entire time that I ever did more than like $3,000 to $4,000, $5,000. When he came on in 2011, 80-90% of our projects were above $5,000 to $8,000. But here's what you got to realize. It's not that those weren't potentially even already there, but at times I thought charging $5,000 to $8,000 was a lot of money, and I was really afraid to ask for it because I didn't maybe believe in the product. So you won't typically get more from most people than you ask for. So when he came on board, he had worked at a high-end hotel at the Four Seasons. What he saw me doing for $3,000 to $5,000 or less, he's like, this stuff would go on for $100,000 over here. And he was out in La Jolla, out in California at one point in time. And so he's coming in thinking when he's charging $10,000, $20,000, it's a steal. If anything, he's being taken advantage of versus me thinking, oh, I'm taking advantage of you. If you think you're a scumbucket, a slime bag, you're taking advantage of people, you're charging too much. If you think these things about your product and service, it will be challenging to get those people to pay more, right? So my guy, he tells me all about this editor thing. And I said, send me the link. I'd like to see the video. I look at the video and I'm like, are we looking at the same video? I'm like, I would 100% right this second send that to my client if that was my video. If I had just shot that and I got that edit back from an editor, I'd 100% give that to my client. Been thrilled. It was a great video. Now, here was the couple things that happened. He knew all the things he had that could have been in there. I didn't know any of that. And so therefore he had things that weren't in there that he knew could have been in there that he felt would have made the video better. Okay, great. Well, then I find out that ultimately, overall, it seemed like he didn't give much instruction. He showed some videos and then, um, said, here's the footage, edit me up a video. I'm like, if that's all you got and you weren't very detailed, you weren't telling them to do certain shots, you weren't teaching them to do certain things. If that's what you were able to do, then they did a phenomenal job and you got a winner on your hands. Right. But I realized in that moment that his standards were so high and he was so, um, like put so much pressure on himself for perfection that even though he had something that probably by most people's standards would be really good, he was going to have it re-edited and spend all this time. And I think he still is, or he already had it in motion before I really fully got to the situation. But like, I'm like, everything he's been telling me through the years, I'm like, this is the stuff that's happening that is preventing him from charging more or getting more projects and opportunities, or when he's got the right people that they're not booking. I had Tony Robbins once, where this lady's on the phone with me and she tells me, we've got another crew that'll do this for $2,000 a day. And I was $4,000 a day. Now, the average person might go, so would you like me to do it for 1,900? Will that seal the deal? Right. And what I realized is in that moment, that money for them wasn't an issue. So I knew who I was dealing with. The higher you go in price, the more confidence you have to have in yourself and what you do. Because typically more affluent people or people who have money or people who do well or people who would pay a lot are certain types of people. And so the more weak you sound, the less convinced you are in what you do, the more you don't sound like you know what you're doing, the more you're being super kind of passive about the conversation, the less likely they are to book you. Not because you're not good at what you do. Somebody may get booked that's actually not as good as what you do. But I have gotten so much work in the past that I look at the work and I go, why are they hiring me? Because the work they had prior to me was just as good and better than me. And so they never say it's because the work isn't good or they don't like the videos. It's always because, this person didn't get back to us. They didn't respond to our email. They took too long. They missed deadlines. They were difficult to deal with. They weren't friendly. Like it's always these like soft skill behind the scenes things that you just judging the work, you wouldn't be able to know. And so it's 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 one of those things where like in the Tony situation, I said, well, I'm going to use some Tony Robbins on you. And the gal kind of laughs. And I said, look, I can't speak for these other people. I don't know what they're going to do, but me and Tony, we've got rapport from the projects we've worked on in the past. You've got one opportunity to do this. You're shooting these interviews with billionaires. And the reality is, if this doesn't go well, like he's screwed. You got one chance to do this. And so I'm going to have backups to my backups. And I just have this confidence and conviction that we're going to do the job right. And this is going to get taken care of properly in a situation that there's higher stakes and over a few $1,000s. That's kind of stupid to do. And so I stuck to my guns and stayed at the $4,000, double what the other people were. Most people would assume if somebody's willing to, if most people's logic would be if somebody's got somebody for half of what you're doing something for, and it seems like apples to apples, they're probably going to win the job. Well, depending on who you're dealing with and depending on what's going on will depend on whether or not that's a true statement. I could have lost that job. I've done that many times in my career and I've still won it. It's like, no, read the room. The problem with my same day edit scenario is that once I got the sales, the confidence, the conviction, the clarity, the product, I got the eyeballs, I got all this stuff coming in. I got leads, I'm talking to people, I'm selling the jobs, I'm selling the same day edit. Everything's going well now. As I started to raise the rates more, this is where now I didn't have a sales conversation issue or a product issue. I now had the right eyeballs, the right people, the right humans to talk to issue. Because if I wanted to do the same product that I was getting 3,500 to 4,000 for and not change a dang thing, but get 10,000, the people I was talking to were going to have to be different. Because about 3 to 4 grand was the cap, because I still had people that were like, my friend got married for $1,000 2 years earlier with you. Like there was that. And it's not that I couldn't book anybody. It's just that I'm going to book less. And I have a lot of people sometimes where even though their demand is high, it depends on who that demand is. Because I've given this scenario before. So this water bottle is 16.9 ounces. If I put this under the sink for 18 hours or 16.9 hours, right? It's still going to hold 16.9 ounces. It doesn't hold anymore. It's just going to overflow. It's not like I continue to fill this big tub up. And so, yes, somebody who doesn't have the capacity to pay doesn't mean they can't find a way, right? But if I were to talk to 100 couples who have a $10,000 budget for everything to do with their wedding, and that's all the leads I'm getting, I can have a great brand and a great reputation and be great at sales and have a great product and all this stuff. But the odds, and statistically speaking, I will sell less with all things the same. I will sell less if I have 100 people who have $10,000 budgets for every vendor they're going to book if I'm trying to sell a $10,000 wedding video, right? But if I have 100 people, all things are equal, and these people have $100,000 budgets or more, I'm going to book, statistically speaking, a lot more. Like, just with that being the variable. So as much as people can get you to believe you can double and quadruple and quintuple and do all these things, like, who you're talking to matters. Yes, with the right sales approach and yada, 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 you can get anybody to whip out their credit card and give you $15,000 over the phone right now. But I have talked to many a creator. I just had a friend not too long ago who basically got shame sold. Like, he took his credit card out. And I think it was, I mean, maybe he got a payment plan or something, but it was like a $15,000 thing that he felt horrible. Like, in doing it, it wasn't like, yes, I'm going to do this. I'm so excited about this program. This is a great decision. I'm so excited. And I know sometimes things you'll be a little scared or whatever. This is not that. This was, he felt shame and guilt and pressure in the negative of negative sense and took that out. And he was so grateful that the card didn't go through. But it was this, like, you hear these people that'll do the things. It's like, so tell me, what are you trying to do here? How much money you make right now? Well, right now I'm making $8,000 a month. Well, in the survey that you filled out, you said you'd like to make 20. Why aren't you making 20 yet? Well, I don't know, man. Like, I've got a family and I got things. Yeah, but what about that family? You don't think you're not letting that family down every single day that you don't take out and do something like this? Because the people in this program who get the greatest results, they make decisions right now. And here's the thing, after 90 days, you're going to be making probably $10, $20, $30,000 a month. And what will that do for your family? All the debt that you talked about today, it'll be wiped away. So this thing that we're asking you to do right now, I mean, this is a drop in the bucket. Now, I mean, you're saying you don't have the money, but I would bet that your grandma or your parents, or you could probably go get a loan. I mean, there's all sorts of things that you could do. Anyways, I can go on and on with this approach and continue to even stab the wound, whatever, even deeper. But it's like, I have seen that there are ways to get people to give you money. But a lot of those people I've seen through the years have buyer's remorse, and they're not always a right fit. It's not that those things are even bad. And sometimes people would argue, oh, you got to do whatever it takes if you got something great. It's like, yeah, but a lot of people who go through those processes aren't exactly going out there and excited to tell people, like, go do a call with that company. It feels amazing. Like, they're a great company. I know it wasn't a right fit for me, but it might be a right fit for you. They don't want to tell anybody about those companies. I had couples who booked me who literally did not book me. Like, I had people, be referred to me, whose friends that were referring me did not book me, but they booked somebody else to try to save some money. But they remember how I made them feel on the call, and they never forgot that. So when the videographer they booked screwed them over, they're like, we should have never tried to save $500. We should have never tried to save $1,000. So we tell everybody to go to you. Well, those were easier sells, obviously. But what else did I want to share here? One second. I mentioned the yeah, and so, I've been able to see in these different stories, like, I've had people who, had a really hard time with their mental health trying to be an entrepreneur, and they ended up getting a job doing the thing that they love, and it really improved their mental health. Um, it's not that versions of entrepreneurship and things can't be taught around sales and marketing and all these things, but if you watch any kind of business video about the things that people are doing to get business and kind of the hustle and the effort and the energy and the time, you know, you got to ask yourself, does that excite you to learn those things, to do those things, to find your way of showing up in that space? I know people who, whether they're editors or shooters, the filmmakers, designers, where there's hybrids who truly love business or learning about business and doing those things, but there are a lot who they hate it. And the hatred towards business, if we cannot get you to overcome that, then to the degree, like I had a gal once who she did photography for 5 years. She was going after videography, had only been doing it for a little bit. We spent a day together. At the end, she was in tears. She goes, "Thank God I did this, because now I know I don't want to do this professionally." Like, I wasn't trying to talk her out of it in any way, shape, or form. I was just saying everything I did, da 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 da, all this stuff to grow my business. Yeah. At the end, she was just like, just sounds like a nightmare. Like, I like video, but I don't like it so much that I think I'm going to do all that's necessary here to succeed in business. And she ended up being a co-owner in a CrossFit gym and had a blast and was loving life. And so I don't have any attachment to helping people be an entrepreneur or not be an entrepreneur, to be self-employed or not self-employed, to hire a lot of people or not hire a lot of people, or do a particular business model or not do a particular business model. I'm helping untangle the minds of people to figure out what'll be best for you. It's not one size fits all. It's what size fits you. You know, I love to be able to dig in and really do kind of a diagnostic of like what's going on. Is it a mindset issue? Is it a skill set issue? Like, where is the problem? Because sometimes one of the things that sparked this all this morning is like even in my coaching, I use an app called Voxer and whatnot. I don't schedule calls. And I kept going, oh, well, I got this problem with Voxer and people don't want to get on this, download this app and this stuff. And it's like, there's maybe slivers of truth to that. But the reality is, it's like, I've got more of a packaging problem than I do a product problem. Like, I've had people been working with me for 5 years. I've had people working with me for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years in this particular method. I love receiving coaching or support through this method. The people who do it with me love it. A lot of the people, not all the people, just like anything, who experience it really love it. So it's like, I don't have a product problem right now. So if I keep wanting to tweak and adjust the product, that's unnecessary. Right now, one of the biggest things, there's not enough people aware of what I'm doing. So I keep getting on here, sharing different things, sharing different stories, helping people see what it is that I share about, what it is that I can help with. And as more and more people aware, and I keep mentioning to more and more people what I do, there will be more and more people interested. But the thing is I've been so invisible for so long in coaching, I can't judge something working or not working based on the fact that, like, there's not enough people seeing it. If I had a ton of people seeing it and a ton of people I'm having conversations with and no one signs up, now I may have how I'm explaining it like the same day edit. But the bigger problem is it I'm able to sell it, but now when I sell it, people don't like it, then I got a product problem. So we got to know, like, if you were actually just to give your product away and you go through the motions of delivering your service, when people receive your services, do they like your services? If they do not like your services, then you have a product problem. But when people experience your services, if they love your service, the likelihood you have a service problem is why you're not making more money is low. It's likely you either not getting enough people, the right people, or it's how you're talking about it. And how you talk about it has a lot to do. Yeah, there's tactics and strategies that people can use. I'll be honest, in all the sales that I've had, maybe I could have done better if I used certain scripts and said, do this and all these kind of things, but it's never been my jam. And when I learn those things, it's never felt good. So I take little bits and pieces, but the more I'm me, the more I've won. The more I'm not, the more I don't. Right. And so we're all going to have our ways. Some people are needing to be highly scripted and highly prepared people. If you're that, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I'd much rather do this, and I'm going to show up 100 times more doing what I'm doing right now than preparing and scripting and doing all that. So even though some could argue it might be better, but it's like, but if I don't show up and I don't ever show up regularly, then it's not better for me. I'm going to get more out of doing 100 of these than I will showing up and doing 5 highly structured, planned things that I only do 5 times and don't do again for 5 years. And so you've got to find what works for you. and what you're excited to do and learn. I believe anybody can learn anything, but you got to have some level of excitement to do it. And if you don't, if like business and marketing are things that, you know, somebody's selling you a bag of goods saying that it's going to be passive and you're not going to have to put that much effort or work 5 hours a week. It might take you working 80 hours a week for 2 years before you only have to work 5 hours a week. They don't tell you that. They don't tell you that that's what they did, right? Nobody mentions that stuff because that's not sexy. Working 80 hours a week for 2 years so you can work 5 hours a week for the rest of your life, that's not sexy to sell on an ad for $97 a month, right? Or for $97 one-time fee with an upsell and a this sell and that sell, right? What's sexy is how you can get unlimited leads working 5 minutes a day, right? These kind of crazy things that are out there. I love the ones that at times are like how to close deals without sales calls. And then literally the thing they're selling has a sales call. I'm like, I love the stuff that's like how to grow organically without ads. And it's an ad. It's like, I get that people are at different stages in business, but it's just like there's such an incongruence sometimes in what people are saying and what they're selling. It's like do as they do, not as they say. Some people do as they say and as they do, but you got to always look at what people are doing, not always just what they're saying, because what they're saying could not be what they're doing. And if that's the case, then likely what they're doing is working, not what they're saying is working. I've known people who never grew through ads, but it was easier, excuse me, from organic, but ultimately we're running ads all the time. And at the end of the day, it was easier and sexier to sell an organic course than it was an ad course, because an organic course, they pay for the course, but they don't have to pay for the ads. Whereas an ad course, they got to pay for the course and they got to pay for ads. And more people would want to just do something that's free than do something that's paid. And so it's really fascinating, just those things that are out there. But it's like, I have a clip of, Mr. Beast, basically it's like this guy's working like, 200 plus hours a week and he's got 250 employees and all he wants to do is make videos all day, every day, nonstop. And then people observe people like this and it's like, but their obsession with their craft and their business is why he's one of the biggest YouTubers on the planet. What did I write down? The idea of, where did I write it down? Oh, yeah, what'd I put? So say you wanna be a coach who that's the thing I wanna talk about, being rigid or flexible. So I wanna add this in here to this conversation today. But say you wanted to be a coach and only wanna work, to do work that makes money 1 day a week for 1 hour with no employees and make $1 million a year profit. That's really gonna limit your options, right? That would mean you would need to potentially find one person to pay you $1 million a year to work with them once a week. Is it possible? Yes. But for some, it may feel like it would be the equivalent of winning the lottery to have that happen. So if they don't truly believe it's possible, and they won't be willing to put actually tons more work on the front end to acquire the skills and the belief to get to the point where one day that could happen, like they're never going to have that happen. So there's these things that are in place that like we got to calibrate our expectations. And I am as susceptible to some of these things as anybody. And so we've just got to look at some of these things, like they sound sexy and they're great to make sales, but when you really dig into the semantics, they're a little like we don't want to be so rigid and have such strict rules, that it makes our life really hard, and so the more flexible that you can be, the more happy you can be. And I found that the more strict I am in life with my rules, like I want it this way and I got to do this and this and this, there's nothing wrong with that. But some of the happiest people are like, yeah, I'm good, whatever, whatever, and they're truly happy. They're just like, I'm truly fine with whatever. And not that it doesn't mean you don't have any preference or anything else, but like when I used to do weddings and have a very scheduled, like regimented, planned, this is what I got to get, this is what I got to do. The problem with that was that having that expectation that I'm going into a wedding that is an uncontrollable thing, as if I'm going to have full control, is what messed me up, right? Psychologically. So there's situations where you're going in thinking you have control over things that are uncontrollable. If I'm doing a movie that's a wedding and I have full control with actors and everybody else, that's a different situation than going into a live event where you can attempt to have levels of control, but to the degree that things kept getting thrown off, I kept getting disappointed and discouraged. So I had to realize in this environment, having these super high expectations is actually depressing and making me, not make as good of videos as when I said, okay, let me flip this. This is a live thing. Let me get what I get, make the best that I can, and ask if there's special things, but know that I'm not Superman. I can't get everything, and I'm never going to have enough people to be everywhere all the time. But I had the conviction around that. I was like, oh, I used to be, if people ask me, well, what about this, this? I'm like, well, I used to be cookie cutter and da, 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 da. And so that was a confidence that mental shift helped me become happier, make better projects, and make more money again. It was a mental shift and a mental perspective because I was very rigid in something that being rigid was unrealistic. Right. And so where are you rigid right now in your mind that is causing you the issues? Is there something that you're doing that if you keep doing it, that definition of insanity, if you keep doing it, you're not making an adjustment, you're just going to probably keep getting the same result. So you got to look at where is the actual problem that you have of why you're not growing your business. Is it a skill set issue? Is it a mindset issue? Do you have enough people seeing it? Do you have the right people? Are you actually having any kind of dialogues or conversations? Like people who are selling things straight to sales pages, it's like a good amount of people to get something on is like 100 at minimum. If you've only had 5 people see something, that's not enough, good enough sample size typically to know whether or not something's working. Because the higher you go in price as well, if you're not going to have a phone conversation, then the lower the conversion is. If you were in a room full of 20 people, the right people, and you sold something for $1,000, you might be able to get 50% of the people. But all those things being equal, but it's just online, you might only get 2% of the people to buy. Right? Just because now online they can click away and everything else. Like I can get people watching this, but the captiveness that you're going to have watching me or listening to me right now will be different than if we were sitting across from each other in a room, just me and you. Right? Because who knows if I'm just white noise in the background and you haven't heard 2/3 of what I've said, but you've left the video playing, right? And so you're going to hear what I'm saying differently right now. You're going to react and consume this differently than if we were in person, if we were in a group, like all the different environments. So anyways, I just want to get on here. I do want to collect my thoughts more on this whole thing because some of these kind of little concepts, they're not new. It's not like they don't exist, but I'm just starting to see my clients, my work, everything I've done in a different lens to help people really identify what are the blind spots, what are the bottlenecks, what are the actual leaks that are going on. Because if we keep fixing kind of the symptom, if I've got a leak right now and it's dripping and I put a bucket down, that doesn't fix the leak. It solves a problem, right? So put the bucket down. It's not dripping all over the place, but when that bucket fills and overflows, I got an even bigger problem. Now, if I'm able to dump it before it overflows, the problem might not be that bad, and I put the bucket down. But who knows what that leak's doing outside of the drip? Could be causing a bigger issue somewhere else you can't see. And so what I say is when that thing starts to overflow, that's usually when people change careers, get divorces, breakups, all sorts of different things in business because they never really get to the source core problem of what's going on. And if you don't get to the core of what's going on, then you just keep, dumping that water out. It slowly fills back up. That could be 3 weeks, 3 months, or 3 years, but it fills back up. And then you're like in the same place you were 3 years earlier because you thought you solved it by moving to a different city, a different state, getting in a different relationship, getting into a different business, a different career, but you never solved the core problem. And then it comes back up and bites you in the rear end. And so if we can find that blind spot, if we can see, do you really have a mindset issue? Some people I work with, their mindset's pretty great, but there's something else that's holding them back. And I'm really good at identifying what that is. Other people, it's definitely a mindset issue. A lot of the creatives I have, they have great work, but their mental game is not great. Creatives tend to lean on the pessimistic side. They tend to lean on the negative side. They tend to lean on the half glass empty, right? I tend to lean way heavily in the glass half full and optimistic side. And so it's a great balance, but helping people identify those things, because if we can increase your confidence, increase your clarity, increase your conviction, increase your certainty, and know where those blind spots are, then you can start to do things that'll help you show up in far more powerful ways. Because if you're getting any kind of results now and those things are going on, the results will be through the roof. But if the product's not great and the mindset's not great, like you've got a greater problem. But increasing the mental game will get you better results faster than first improving the product game. It's crazy to me, but I just see it all day, every day, where people are having great products and not making great money, and people with inferior products making great money, and the people making the most money have both. So Anyways, rock and roll, subscribe, follow, like, leave a comment, say hello. Appreciate you being here. And for those of you who stick around and hear this right now, you're a rock star. I know I sometimes go for 30, 40, 50 minutes. My goal is for you to be able to dip in and out and hear different things and get what you need. Some people only need to hear me for 2 minutes. Some people hear me for the whole 20, 30, 40 minutes. But I just want to keep showing up to bring the Gebs juice, bring the energy, bring the passion, bring the perspective, and help shifting your mindset so that you don't get stuck in dark holes. So if you want to reach out, you can go head on over to jumpstartyourlife.net. Right now, I have a process there where you can submit an audio of your story, of your situation, of your question. Typically you can kind of relate it. The video, there's going to be a video that puts you over the edge. So whatever that video is that you hear here that puts you over the edge of some topic that I'm covering, and you're like, okay, I got to reach out. I need some help here. All you do is submit an audio to me, and then I'll get back to you with a video. And then if you want to dig deeper, we can talk about what that looks like. There's no hard selling, no pressure, no pushing from me. But don't hesitate to reach out. I'm here. Leave a comment, DM me, or go there and send me an audio, and I'll see how I can help. So rock and roll, my friends. Have an incredible day, and we will talk soon. Take care. Bye-bye.